We all know we have to drink water to survive, right? But have you ever really stopped to ask why? It's so much more than just not being thirsty. Today, we're going to dive deep into this simple little molecule, H2O, to figure out what makes it the secret ingredient for all life on Earth. So first, let's just get a sense of the scale we're dealing with. When we say water is essential, the word essential barely even covers it. It's the stage, the setting, and the main character in the story of life. I mean, just think about this. Inside every single one of your cells, a staggering 70 to 90% of everything in there is just water. All the complex molecules that make you you are basically just floating around in your own personal microscopic ocean. Okay, so that leads us to the big question. Why water? Of all the molecules out there, what makes this one, 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen, the undisputed champion of life? Well, the answer starts small. Really, really small. To really get a grip on water's power, we have to zoom way in, down to a single molecule, and look at its most important feature. Turns out, it's a little bit two-faced, and for life, that's a very, very good thing. The secret has a name: polarity. You see, in a water molecule, the oxygen and hydrogen atoms are supposed to be sharing electrons. But the oxygen atom is kind of greedy. It's an electron hog, and it pulls them a little closer to its side. Because of that unequal sharing, the whole molecule gets 2 different personalities. Since electrons are negative, the oxygen side ends up with a slight negative charge, and that leaves the hydrogen sides with a slight positive charge. So here's the key takeaway. Every single water molecule acts like a tiny little magnet with a positive end and a negative end. Now, having one tiny magnet is kind of neat, I guess. But the real magic, the magic that makes life possible, happens when you get a whole lot of them together. This is where that polarity really starts to show its stuff. So what happens when you pour a bunch of tiny magnets into a jar? They're going to stick to each other, right? Well, it's the exact same idea with water. You can see it happening right here. The positive hydrogen end of one water molecule is drawn to the negative oxygen end of its neighbor. This little connection isn't super strong, and we call it a hydrogen bond. It's this constant dance, forming, breaking, and reforming millions of these bonds every second that gives water all of its superpowers. Okay, so all these hydrogen bonds lead to 4 incredible properties, or tricks if you like, that are absolutely non-negotiable for life as we know it. Let's break them down. All right, trick number 1, water is incredibly sticky. Those hydrogen bonds make water molecules want to cling to each other, and they'll also cling to other surfaces that have a charge. This stickiness actually has 2 different names. When water sticks to itself, we call it cohesion. That's why water forms beads and droplets. When water sticks to other things, like the morning dew on a leaf, we call that adhesion. And here's where it gets amazing. In plants, adhesion makes water stick to the inside of these tiny tubes called xylem. Then cohesion makes the water molecules pull each other up in one long, unbroken chain. They work together to pull water from the roots all the way to the top of the tallest trees, totally defying gravity. Water's second trick is that it is fantastic at dissolving things. It's actually so good at it that it's earned the nickname the universal solvent. And again, it's all because of those tiny molecular magnets. They can swarm around other charged particles like salt or sugar and literally pull them apart until they dissolve. This is critical. It makes our cells into a kind of chemical soup where all the reactions of life can happen, and it lets our blood transport nutrients all over our bodies. All right, trick number 3. Water is incredibly stubborn when it comes to changing temperature. It acts like a giant temperature buffer for the whole planet and for our bodies too. Just look at the difference here. The specific heat capacity is massive. It takes a huge amount of energy to raise the temperature of water by even 1 degree, because first you have to spend a ton of that energy just breaking all those hydrogen bonds. This is exactly why coastal cities have milder climates and why our internal body temperature stays rock steady. This property also happens to power our body's best cooling system, sweating. When you get hot, you sweat. Your own body heat provides the energy to break the hydrogen bonds in that water. Then, as the sweat evaporates into a gas, it literally carries that heat away with it, leaving your skin cooler. It's like a perfect built-in air conditioner. The final trick might be the weirdest one of all. Unlike almost any other substance you can think of, when water gets cold and freezes solid, it actually becomes less dense. The reason why is fascinating. So, In liquid water, the molecules are all jumbled up, sliding past one another pretty closely. But as it freezes, the hydrogen bonds lock everything into this rigid, orderly crystal structure. And that structure actually holds the molecules farther apart than they were in the liquid, which means ice is less dense. And the consequence of that is just profound. It means ice floats. In the winter, lakes and oceans freeze from the top down. That layer of ice on the surface creates an insulating blanket that protects all the liquid water and the life within it from the freezing cold air above. It's a total game changer. So, we've gone through the chemistry. Now let's just take a quick look at how these wild properties have actually shaped the evolution of animals in the real world. Check out these two Arctic animals. Remember how water is really good at sucking heat out of you? Well, that thick blubber on the seal is a direct evolutionary answer to that problem. And the loon, most birds have hollow bones to be light, but the loon has evolved solid bones. Why? To help it fight against water's natural buoyancy when it dives down for fish. They are perfectly adapted to the physics of water. And that really brings us to our final thought. Life as we know it is built on this foundation of water's unique properties. And all of it, every last bit, comes from that simple polarity. If those hydrogen bonds were just a tiny bit different, a little weaker, a little stronger, ice might sink or water might just boil away. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? The entire